friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on my channel. Cooking videos, vlogs, hauls, Disney content, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. Today's video is a gluten and dairy-free copycat recipe that I've been wanting to make for quite a while now. I don't really have any rhyme or reason to making this today, so let's just call it getting ready for back to school treat. When I was a kid, one of the things that you can count on being in my lunchbox, besides a squeeze-it drink and those Sprinklins yogurts, if anybody was a 90s kid and you remember either of these things, drop a heart emoji in the comments right now. One other thing you can count on being in my lunchbox for sure was a Kudos bar. Now, in case you did not grow up in the 90s, a Kudos bar was basically like a ricey, oaty cereal bar, and it always had some form of chocolate in it or on it. They had some that were just completely enrobed in chocolate. They had other ones that had like a chocolate drizzle and had chocolate chips in them. There were some M&M ones, and I think they had like Snickers ones even for a minute. There was all sorts of different kinds. Now me as a kid, I was a purist. I loved the chocolate chip kind. They discontinued Kudos years ago, and even if they hadn't, I wouldn't be able to eat them because they had gluten and dairy in them, and I do not eat either. So for a really long time now, I've been meaning to find a recipe that I could tweak to make it safe for me to eat, and I think I found just such a recipe. This looks like it should be simple enough. I'm a little bit intimidated by the concept of dipping the bars because ours are gonna have that signature like floor, if you will, of chocolate underneath. I've never done anything like that before, and typically when I've tried to do something similar, it doesn't usually come out very pretty. But you know what? We're going for homemade here. Even if it's not gorgeous, as long as it's tasty, I'll be happy with it. So we're going to start with our ingredients. We're going to get into the cooking, and at the end, we're going to do a taste test, and I cannot wait. So for this recipe, we're going to need 3 cups of gluten-free puffed rice cereal of your choice. I say that because if you use, say, Rice Krispies treats, they actually have gluten in them because they have barley, like for that malted flavor. So I'm using Arrowhead Mills because it is in fact gluten-free. 3 cups of that, as I said. We need a ½ cup of gluten-free oats. I always make sure to buy oats, even though they're naturally gluten-free. I buy the ones that are explicitly labeled as such because oats are one of those things that have an extremely high incidence of cross-contamination with wheat just because of how the harvesting process works. So yes, oats are naturally gluten-free, but unless they're explicitly labeled as such, you can't be certain that the precautions were taken to make sure they stayed that way. So ½ cup of gluten-free oats, a pinch of salt, a ¼ cup of coconut oil, a ½ cup of maple syrup if you want to keep this vegan, or honey. I didn't have any real maple syrup on hand, so I'm going to be using honey today. We also need a ¼ cup of nut or seed butter. So you can use peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter. You could even use sunflower seed butter if you want to keep it nut-free. I've got just some honey roasted peanut butter here, not even the natural kind. I'm using what I have on hand, but you have options. We need a teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1 cup of non-dairy chocolate chips. Enjoy Life brand is the one that I use always whenever I'm going to cook anything with chocolate. And so I have an open bag, but I should have at least a cup there. As far as our hardware, we're going to need some parchment paper to line our 8x8 dish. I very much insist that you use parchment paper, wax paper, aluminum foil even, but don't just smush it right into the pan because it might be very difficult for you to get them out later. Remember, these are going to be a little bit sticky to start, so I highly recommend lining your tray with some sort of paper because that way you can just lift the whole thing out when it's time to cut. We're also going to need a small saucepan, and we're going to need a big bowl. So first things first, I'm going to line my pan, and as you can see, I crunched up the paper because once you've crunched it up like this, it's going to hold its shape a lot easier in your pan. So there it is lined, and now I'm going to set it aside. So now into my saucepan, I'm going to put my ¼ cup of coconut oil, I'm going to use the same measuring cup to measure out a 1/4 cup of peanut butter. Or again, you could use almond butter or sunflower seed butter or whatever makes sense for you and yours. But there's a 1/4 cup of peanut butter as well. And lastly, I'm going to measure out a 1/2 cup of honey. I'm just going to pour that bloop right in there. You could also, I didn't think of it, but you could spray your measuring cup, whether you're using maple syrup or honey, but particularly in the case of honey, you could spray your measuring cup with some like cooking oil spray, and that will help keep it from sticking to the cup like this. So you'll have an easier time getting it all out. So do as I say, not as I do. Obviously, I mean, you're watching. I'm not having a terrible time at it, but it could have been easier. So now I've turned my heat to medium, and I'm going to stir this pretty much continuously because I don't want the sugars to stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. But I'm just going to cook it on medium heat until it's thickened and well combined. In fact, I'm going to set a little stopwatch for myself so I can let you guys know approximately how long that takes for me, because there's nothing I hate more than a recipe that says, just do it till it's done. So it might, you know, your mileage may vary, but at least you'll have an idea of what to expect. And while our mixture is doing its thing back here, I could really wait to do this because either way, we have to wait for our nut butter, coconut oil, etc. to cool down some before we move on to the next step, and it's still actively cooking. But I am impatient, so I'm gonna go ahead and take my large bowl and I'm gonna mix in my 1/2 cup of oats. There's that. And we also need 3 cups of our rice cereal. That's 1, 2, 3 cups. I'm doing this by volume, not by weight. I try to do everything by weight, especially when I'm making something in the dessert realm, because that seems to be the way things work out best. But the recipe didn't specify, and 3 cups by weight of this, especially since it's so light, is going to be a lot. So this actually looks like an appropriate ratio, I think. This has started to bubble back here, so I'm giving it some extra stirs. And I think it's going to be ready pretty soon because it's already kind of taking on, I don't know if you guys could see back here. When I drag my spoon or my spatula across the bottom, you're starting to kind of see a trail, and that's telling me that it's definitely thickening. So I'm going to let this go for a full 5 minutes, because as it is right now, we're at 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So I'm going to give it another 30 seconds approximately to keep cooking down. And at the 5-minute mark, I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to mix in my vanilla and my salt at that point. And I'm just going to let it cool for, let's say, maybe 5 minutes off to the side before I mix it with this. This I'm also going to give a good toss so that the oats and the cereal are evenly distributed throughout. This is it at the 5-minute mark, and I can very much smell the peanut butter and the honey, so I think we're good to move on to our next steps. It has been exactly 5 minutes, and now this has taken on sort of a caramel look and consistency. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I went ahead and I tasted both components. This is wildly bland, but what can you expect? It's raw oats and literally puffed rice is the only ingredient in this cereal. So there's no sugar to this, there's no salt to this, it's just bland. This, however, tastes amazing. It actually does taste like a peanut butter caramel. So I'm very excited for this to add some life to this. And speaking of, that's exactly what we're about to do. We're going to go ahead and put all of this mixture into our cereals, if you will. Just going to go ahead and put all of it in there, scrape every little last bit, because as I've just learned, this is where all of our flavor is coming from. For now, anyway. So there's that. Every last bit. And we're just going to incorporate these two things together. So this is like Rice Krispie style, where you gotta make sure to get all the sticky stuff onto all the dry stuff, because that's really the only way you're going to turn all this dry stuff into sticky stuff. And you want this to be sticky because you want this to set up and form bars. So I'm trying my best. Oh, there's a big pool of caramel down here at the bottom. I don't know if it's technically a caramel, but I feel like that's the easiest way to refer to it because that's what it looks like. That's what it's acting like right now. So caramel it is. That looks good. That looks pretty well distributed. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to take this pan that we had set aside and lined, and I'm going to put all of our now sticky cereal into our pan. And this is what I meant about it being sticky and potentially hard to remove from the pan later. So just spraying down the pan, I mean, it'll help, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a lot easier for us later to just lift the paper right out of the pan to do our slicing, rather than having to battle this sticky stuff off of the glass and potentially breaking our bars when it's all said and done. So that's pretty much that. Now, the recipe says at this point, let harden for about an hour. But that's it. That's all it says. Let harden for an hour. It doesn't specify on the counter, in the fridge, nothing. It just says let it harden. Now, the one comment that I've seen on this recipe that I'm following is somebody saying, "Hi, my bars didn't set up. Any advice?" So potentially it could be that she didn't let her caramel cook for long enough. Like, there's a million reasons why these might not set up. And perhaps mine won't set up either. But I figure to give them their best shot, I'm going to go ahead and put these in the refrigerator. Again, am I supposed to do that? I don't know, because the recipe doesn't specify. But I'm going to make an educated guess here and say that putting them in the fridge couldn't hurt as far as helping them set up firm. So I'm just packing them down really, really tight to disperse them evenly throughout the pan, but also to give them their best chance of actually like coming together and firming up. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in the fridge for 1 hour. And I'll see you guys back here after that, because at that point we're going to presumably take them out of their pan, slice them into 8 bars, melt the chocolate chips, which again, the recipe does not say how to melt them, if we should use some coconut oil, microwave it, double boiler. It literally just says melt the chocolate. So you're on your own there. We're gonna dip our bars on the bottom to give them that signature Kudos like chocolate foundation. And then if we've got chocolate left over, we're gonna drizzle it over the top and our bars should be ready at that point. So, see you in an hour. All right, pallies, it's been a little over an hour now, so I've got my cup of chocolate chips, which is a lot, and I'm adding it to like this shallow bowl situation with about a teaspoon, I think, of coconut oil. I'm gonna microwave this for, I don't know, until it melts, but I'm gonna do it in like 15-second increments so that I take it out and stir it every 15 seconds, and that way I give it as little chance to burn as possible. Before I do that though, let me go ahead and take this out. See, that's what I mean. Look how easily that lifts out. Now I can just do this to unleash it, and I'm gonna use my biggest knife to cut that into 8 equal bars. Le knife. So I'm gonna do half. Kiddo is just having a blast in his room right now. So if you hear any little shrieks in the background, that's what's going on. He's having a great time. So I cut it in half first, and then I'm cutting those halves in half. Lastly, I'm gonna do one of these down the middle. And these seem to have held up perfectly, actually. Those look like proper bars to me, so yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna go ahead and say that sticking them in the fridge for the hour is definitely the thing to do. Now, are they a perfect bar shape? Are you gonna trick anybody into thinking that you actually brought Kudos back from the culinary dead? No, they're very much rustic and homemade looking, but I'm okay with that because they are homemade. And you want people to know the love that you put into their treats. Alright friends, so this is after a minute and a half total in the microwave. Again, I took it out every 15-20 seconds to give it a mixy mix. It's not perfectly smooth just yet, but if I just stir it around enough, the bits of chocolate that are still solid are going to go ahead and melt with the residual heat. And that way we don't have to keep nuking it and potentially scorching the chocolate, which would be bad eats. I picked this bowl in particular because I wanted something with a large surface so that we could do this now. I'm going to grab each of the bars and I'm going to dunk them into our chocolate, and then, oh, that's better. Once it's got that coating on it, I'm going to put it back on our parchment upside down, and I might give it, let's say 15 minutes to completely cool. I don't think it's even necessary to do that, but I'm going to do it just, you know, just for funsies, just to make sure. Because even if that chocolate doesn't completely solidify before we turn these back around, it's still going to be tasty. And we've already decided that them being beautiful is not priority. Rustic is just fine by me. So I'm going to go ahead and dunk the rest of these. Put them upside down to solidify some. As a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I might not let them solidify too much, because as the chocolate here solidifies, so is the chocolate in the bowl. And I don't want that, because I don't want to have to re-microwave this chocolate. Comes back to not wanting to scorch the chocolate and make it taste burnt. So what I'm gonna do is, just like this, now that they've all gotten a good dunk, just like the original Kudos, ta-da! Now I'm going to turn them each back around. That actually looks perfect. Look how pretty. And they're not going to stick because it is parchment, so I don't have to worry about the chocolate drying and then the bars falling apart when I peel them off. They might stick some, but the parchment will eventually let them go. So now I'm going to grab some of this chocolate that's left on my fork, and we're going to do our best to have some drizzle action going here over the top. And again, it's not going to be perfect. Why? Because we are people. We are not machines. So there's going to be some bars that have a little more coverage, some with a little less. Some of them are going to be gloppier, and others are going to be a perfect smooth drizzle. But that is looking pretty fantastic to me either way. And it's definitely giving kudos. Now, if you wanted to, you could throw some chocolate chips, like whole chocolate chips, on top of these. You could even get some of these guys. These are called Choco No-Nos. They're from a company called No Way. And they are gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, vegan, etc. Like, they're all sorts of allergy-friendly. They're basically M&Ms. They're like Copycat M&Ms. So this could also be fun to like chop up a bag roughly with a knife and put those over the top before you do the chocolate drizzle, and that way the chocolate drizzle helps hold them in place. But I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember there being M&M Kudos, like that was a variety of them back in the day. So that's something you could do as well. I'm gonna grab this one. Oh no. Okay, we lost a little bit of chocolate, but that's fine. And again, I should probably let these solidify some, but I can't wait to try it. So I'm going to go ahead and try it right now. I will definitely have to wash my hands and face before I get back on camera. And I'll also come back in a minute to show you guys what they look like when they're completely solid. I'm going to stick them back in the fridge for a minute. But that is so delicious. The peanut butter, it has just the right amount of sweetness, which granted, I did use a honey peanut butter, and I'm sure that that contributed to the flavor. So it's something to keep in mind, that you might not have the exact same result if you're not using the exact same ingredients, but my goodness, the texture is great. They're definitely holding up as bars, and they're only going to get more solid once I keep them in the fridge. Amazing. I will absolutely make these again. These would be great in any lunchbox. Fantastic as a snack. As a matter of fact, I feel like if you wanted to individually wrap these in parchment and like keep them in the fridge or freezer for like a quick on-the-go thing, that would probably be a great idea. I can't wait to finish this. Alright guys, it's been less than 10 minutes in the fridge and these are already looking perfect. I'm going to go ahead and just pick one up so you could see We do leave some chocolate behind, but there is a nice little coating still. These could probably stand another few minutes in the fridge. But I just wanted to show you guys that it really does not take long at all before you have these perfect Kudos copycats ready to eat. They might not look like the real thing, but they sure do look good. Alright friends, I am very, very pleased with how these turned out. I'm thinking I might freeze some, mostly to slow myself down from eating all of them at once because they are that dang good. I know my family's gonna love these. I especially can't wait for my siblings to try them because I know that they remember growing up eating these and it's been a minute. So I'm very, very excited to share these. I will for sure be making these again. They're a little calorie dense, but I feel like that's going to be good on a day that we're like out at the zoo or on a road trip or something. To make up a batch to bring along with us, that's going to be super, super helpful. And I mean, they're just good. I don't really need an excuse to eat them, do I? They're really, really good. I know the brand No Way makes a Snickers like dupe almost. I think it's more like a Milky Way. But between that and the No Way M&Ms that I showed you guys, I could even make a full variety of these. This could be cool for like a birthday party even. Lots of ideas flowing, but the bottom line is they're delicious. I will for sure be making these again. If you decide to try them, I'd love for you to come back and let me know how you like them. And before you go, look in that description box because I'm going to be linking a playlist that's all gluten and dairy free desserts. And I'm going to be linking my gluten and dairy free just general board that's got over 200 videos on it for recipes, grocery hauls. I even have a guide that I recently put out on how to get started on gluten and dairy free eating in case you're new to the lifestyle and you're not really sure where to begin. So thank you so much for being here and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click the notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye!